Hi, thank you. I am, I think, the only non-HR person in the room, probably other than yourself. So I'm going to speak from the business perspective. I'm going to speak also from a personal perspective as an employee and from my 12 years at Biogen. In case you're not all too familiar with Biogen, we're based here in Cambridge. We are a mid-sized biotech company, maybe getting to be a large one by now. When I joined it about 12 years ago, we had under 3,000 people and about $1 billion in sales. Today we have over 7,000 people and about $7 billion in sales, and it's climbing. So we're on a really fast trajectory. We've got our focus area over the last number of years has been in multiple sclerosis. We've got 5 multiple sclerosis drugs, chronic treatments, disease-modifying therapies, and we have another one on the way that's starting the regulatory process soon. And we just launched our first 2 products in hemophilia. They got approved earlier this summer, so that's a whole new business area for us. And I worked on getting those products approved, leading those teams for the last couple of years, and then I moved over back to the multiple sclerosis side, leading that business just a couple of months ago. But I'm going to talk about diversity and inclusion and about realizing the value of that at Biogen, both me realizing the value of that over this time period, and then Biogen realizing the value of that, and how much we've changed over the last couple of years, and how that's fit into enabling us to achieve all this growth. So I joined Biogen in 2003. In 2011, we had a summer intern, an MBA candidate from Stanford, I think, who had come from the HR side, and the project that we gave him was to look at diversity and inclusion at Biogen, interview a bunch of us, and come up with some recommendations on what we should be doing in order to get better at it. So he wanted to interview me, and I was delighted to do so, of course, because I'm passionate about Biogen, and I always love to show off to the interns about how great a company we are and brag a little bit, maybe get them to join the company at the end of the summer. And I'm a lesbian and a woman, so I had a lot of opinions about Biogen and diversity and how well we were doing on that front. So he asked me about it, and I told him my experiences. I said, look, I joined the company, and I was an associate director, and after the first year, I had an opportunity where my job was moving over to Europe, and I had to talk to my boss, who was the head of international, and say, yes, I'd love to do that, but I have to tell you I'm a lesbian. My partner would have to come with me. And the company made it so easy for us. They set us up with immigration attorneys. They set us up with an expat contract that included the idea of her, and so topped up our cost of living allowance, or we got a 2-bedroom apartment instead of a 1-bedroom apartment, all these things. And they even helped testify we ended up, in order to a year and a half later on moving there, to help us become married in Zurich, because we figured out that was the only way to get my partner to stop being an illegal alien, was to go and actually get married in Zurich. But that was all in German, and someone from Biogen translated, and so it was something where I felt that I was hard. I was a kind of a difficult employee, and Biogen did everything that they could, even without the U.S. Context or the Swiss context being very friendly to it. Biogen was good at problem solving and finding a way for this to work so that I could do that job that I wanted to do. Flash forward a few years, my partner needed neurosurgery, and we came home to Mass General to get that done. And she's fine, but it was scary. And after the surgery, she had a couple of complications. She got readmitted a couple of times. And it was such a relief to me working at a company that is focused in multiple sclerosis and is just chock full of neurologists, a lot of them with privileges at Mass General. And I was this crazy, scared spouse. And I just felt so comforted in this hard time by this community within my company. And the chief medical officer was giving me advice about the different neurologists that we were dealing with, the neurosurgeons, how to what the complications might be. And he didn't really do anything, but he was just there for me, and he just made me feel more supported. And so that was available to me. And then the third and last example I'll give is an example of good times. We have a 5-year-old daughter, and when she was born, I had come back to the United States by then, and I was chief of staff to our CEO, and surrounded by all these executive vice presidents at the company, and the joy that they had and that they shared with us when we had our daughter be born was overwhelming to me, because I'd always considered my personal life to be my own thing, that the back seat of the car that I leave at home. But we were overwhelmed with baby baskets and big smiles, and we felt really embraced and greeted into the family of parents within the company. So my take on Biogen and diversity and inclusion was a lot like everything else at the company. We have a small company orientation, or we always did. We're getting away from it a bit now as we get bigger. We don't have a lot of processes, we don't have a lot of procedures, but what we do have is we have an organization that's chock full of really smart people who try to do the right thing. And no matter what comes up, whether it's on the business side or on the HR side, they would figure out the problem, figure out a solution, and they would do the right thing. So this intern was patiently listening to me all this time and taking it all in, and said, "That's great, I just have one last question. We're tossing around the idea about having a diversity and inclusion head in HR, that might help us to improve on D&I. What do you think?" And I said, gee, like what would they do? Like, I couldn't imagine, if we had such a person, what would they actually do that would be different? Because we're already so good. And I was, this is 2011. A lot's happened since then, and now I realize I was an idiot. Thank God I didn't make the decision. So what was wrong, and what I didn't appreciate back then about how we were approaching diversity and inclusion, was that we were putting all of the onus on the employee in order to come forward and kind of bring their complexity to the table so that the company could solve it, but without extending any kind of signal to them that it was going to be okay. And so that was putting all the pressure on them. And it was putting all the pressure also on new hires, recruits, people who didn't really have a lot of people to talk to within Biogen to know whether it was going to be a good environment. They had to kind of take a leap of faith. And even when I joined Biogen as an associate director, and I wanted to take that job in Zurich, but I was scared, when I reflected back, to talk to my boss, because I didn't know how he would react. I didn't know if this was going to be something that would disqualify me or that was going to actually be impossible given the immigration laws and things. So we were putting a lot of weight on the employees. And we were also putting a lot of weight on the managers, all those smart, well-motivated, good-intentioned people, to, when an employee does bravely come forward and ask for what they need, to react in the way that they would want to act, or that the company would want them to act, and to be able to find the solution to the problem. And we were asking them to do all of this without ever explicitly asking them to do that, and without giving them any kind of direction or guidance or training on what we would want them to do. And because of that, we were creating a tremendous risk across the company that we would not always show up as an employer and create a workplace that was the one that we wanted to have. And it all worked for me. I was lucky, my experiences were good, but I was in a very privileged spot. I was working for the head of international. I was a bright young thing, and everyone was solving problems around me and for my boss. But I'm not sure that I cannot say that the experience was like that for the other 3,000 people across the company at that time and 7,000 that we have now. And so that was a really important risk that we were tolerating and just not good enough. So again, happily, I was not the one making the decision on whether we would improve this. Brighter minds prevailed. So in 2012, we did get ahead of diversity and inclusion. Javier Barrientos, who has done so much for us. And we have a diversity and inclusion council that is about 20 people across the organization who kind of steer where we're going to focus on improving diversity and inclusion. We have a series of employee resource networks. We started out with the Women's Network, WIN, Women's Innovation Network. The second one was Reach Out, which is for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and allies. And I was co-chair of that one in launching it. We started measuring aspects of diversity and inclusion in our annual employee survey, and started giving metrics back to vice presidents and above about how their organizations are feeling about the environment in the workplace. Do they feel like they're able to bring their issues and topics to the workplace and have them be understood and embraced? And do they feel like they can be included and bring their whole selves? And at the executive vice president level, we started tracking metrics around number of women in directors and above roles, number of minorities in director above roles, and really having conversations. If those numbers look different from other parts of the company, why is that? And what could it be? And what could we do to try to start to change the talent pool that's coming up through these lines so that we can have a more representative culture? And it's had impact back. If you looked maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we have 50% women employees, but we only had one executive vice president, so at the very top level, and maybe only, I think we had 2 senior vice presidents. Now we have 2 executive vice presidents out of about 8 or 9. As of a month ago, we got 1 more. And we're up to 5 or 6 women at the SVP level, and it's true on the minorities as well. And it's just the whole environment it's working. We're getting a more representative management team, and the culture of the place is also starting to change. I want to say a little bit more about what the employee resource networks have delivered, and use the Reach Out one, the LGBTQ one, as an example, since that's the one that I was co-founder and co-leader of the last couple of years. So that's us. That's me and my wife now, and our daughter Annabelle, who is a Bright Horizons graduate, by the way. Just started kindergarten. But when we founded this group, I was actually the only lesbian that I knew who was out at Biogen, out of many, many thousands of people. And I know a lot of them. I know a lot of the people. But I didn't know any other out lesbians. The only ones I had met were ones who invited me for coffee while they were. It wasn't like an exit interview because I wasn't in HR, but they were leaving the company, and they said they just came out to me as they were going. Now we have a group with 120 people who are very active within the group, and we do stuff. We are visible within the company, and I know lots of lesbians within the company now, as well as allies, and the support that has allowed people to express for us has also been really great. So all of those people, both within the group and outside the group, the back seat of the car is now accessible to us, and it's all present there at work. We also, for our first initiative within the Reach Out group, we took the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index as a key initiative that we were going to focus on. HRC is very clever. They rate every company above a certain size, but if you don't answer the survey, then they figure out how many points that they know you can deserve from your website, and they give you that many. So we only had 15 points out of 100. We were grayed out. It was just embarrassing. It was not how we wanted to show up. So we set a goal of getting to 100%, and we did. We got up to 85% in the first year, and we got up to 100% in the second year, and we're there again this year as a third year. That gave us a platform to improve on a lot of the policies, to look at what are the things that are important in the eyes of this organization, and let's get those things in line. When we looked at it, it turned out we had probably half the things already, and we just prioritized the next things. The ones that we're especially proud about are we equalized healthcare benefits, tax equalized them, so that same-sex partners, particularly now that we did this before it became legal at a federal level, which was fantastic. But so briefly we benefited in Massachusetts, but we still have a very significant organization of employees down in North Carolina where same-sex marriage is not legal, and also it's legal to fire employees for being gay. So the environment is very different down there, and we have policies now at a corporate level, which really communicate proactively to employees about what kind of employer we want to be, how we want it to be for the gay people at our sites, and then provide meaningful benefits to those employees. We also offered transgender benefits. That was something that we had to do this year in order to maintain 100%, and it was something that the company did very easily. It could have been a struggle. We weren't sure what to expect, and it was not hard at all. So we're extremely proud of that, and I'm extremely proud of Biogen for that. And finally, our legal team submitted amicus briefs for the Massachusetts State Supreme Court decision on making marriage, federal rights around marriage, and on the U.S. Supreme Court. So being involved not only in changing the culture within our own company, but in communicating as an employer that this is something that was important also for Biogen. So this is a graph of our stock price over the time that I've been at Biogen, and we've just been on an incredible run over the last few years. We've had 5 different products read out with positive data, 5 big studies. We've gotten 4 drugs approved and launched so far over the last couple of years, and we've just had another positive data readout this summer, when that one will be now going through the regulatory process as well. We've been really busy, and when I talk to people about this chart, the decisions that got us to this kind of success don't relate to diversity and inclusion. They don't relate to culture. I think we did some of this stuff despite our culture, honestly, because we had to make decisions on products and on studies and bets to take and research that predated any of the culture change that's happened in the last few years. But in 2010, we got a new CEO, we got a new management team, and their assessment of us was, hey, great company, lots of potential, not a great culture. And they started really focusing on it. And this diversity and inclusion initiative was a key part of that, along with empowering employees, pushing decision-making down, trying to pull out of our stovepipes. So I don't think that we could have actually operationalized and pulled through the success that we had presented to us over the last few years without that culture change. We would have had all these products and all these things ready to launch, but we wouldn't have executed on it, I think, as well as we have over the last few years. We have hired 3,000 additional employees. We've had to attract them, convince them to join the company, and then onboard them into teams, get them working together with the legacy employees. All of that has really depended on the culture that we've put in place over the last few years, and enabling people then to bring all of themselves to work, and then stay at work 20 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week through this period. So you have to really love your job and love your colleagues and trust each other on the team in order to be able to do that. Where we're going now is we've become a workplace that embraces diversity and inclusion. The next frontier for us is to become partner of choice, to bring our appreciation for and celebration of difference beyond our own walls to the way we approach our customers and to the way we think about patients. And this is a picture of in healthcare. The view on a patient is often so medicalized. You have a patient who comes in, they're dressed in their gown, they're being seen by doctors, and we view everyone through a very medicalized lens. And we don't view patients in terms of all of the rest of their lives. And everyone has all these other things going on. We are focused in areas of chronic disease, so multiple sclerosis, hemophilia. If you get a diagnosis in one of those diseases, it affects your whole life. It's not just you were not just a patient with that disease. You were a person with hemophilia or a person with multiple sclerosis with obligations to your children and to your spouse and a job to go to. I had the occasion last week, ECTRIMS was in Boston. It's the largest conference globally focused on multiple sclerosis. And the heads of the European MS Federation, the patient organization for, umbrella organization for all the European MS organizations, was in town. So I met with her, and she made the remark that employers who are, if you're a good employer for people with MS, then you're a good employer. Because the things that you do to accommodate and to understand how to enable people with multiple sclerosis to be effective in their job help you to understand how to unlock that for all the rest of your employees. I think the twist on that, though, for Biogen is that now that we are an employer who can see that and celebrate that difference and allow our employees to bring that to the table, now can we bring that and better understand the needs of our MS patients and the needs of the healthcare professionals that are looking after the MS patients to better meet the rest of their needs. They have a need for a medicine, but they have so many other needs too, and if we can see those and help them with that, then they can choose our version of the medicine in question rather than a competitor's. So we are on a journey, and we're by no means there yet, but we see it now, and there are so many opportunities now that we can look to and discover now that we have that lens. So thank you very much for having me here, and enjoy.